Welcome back to Cables in 4K. Today we're going to primarily talk about a cable store on AliExpress called XINHS. And if you just run across their store on AliExpress, it looks like a normal cable store. These two happen to be cables from their store that you can buy off of their listings. And these are, very beautiful, thick 4-core cables at a very reasonable price. And this all began with a couple great guys on HeadFi saying, hey, I found this store on AliExpress. Their cables seem really great. They're very reasonable. And give it a try. So a few of us bought a bunch of cables. We all started comparing notes, all great cables. And that sort of led to people saying, oh, by the way, XINHS will customize cables too. So if you have a normal cable that you want a custom termination on, or you want an L-shaped adapter on, or you want black connectors instead of silver connectors, they essentially build cables to order. So if you want to do something special, like this happens to be a 3.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter with 3 or so inches of graphite cable and 8-core graphite in between. So does anyone really need this? No. Did they do it for me, as a custom job? They did, and it's beautiful, and I love it. It's just not something that you can find on their listings. You essentially have to message them and say, hey, can you make me a 3.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter with graphene 8-core in between? And they say, sure, we can do that, and you set up the transaction. So as an offshoot of this, there was another super smart guy on HeadFi, whose name I will proceed to butcher now, Rakudo. I apologize for trying to pronounce her name. So he sort of took this a step further and said, can we do a custom cable? And I had a similar thought, and he really did it first and got it done. And essentially it's sort of combining these two, not these two in particular, but a copper and a pure silver. And I don't have the pure silver with me, but essentially taking this is a 4-core copper, this is 4-core copper. If you combine these two into an 8-core, you get one type of cable. And the pure silver and copper mixed cable is sort of unique because there's not many budget cables that have pure silver and a very nice copper mix at an affordable price. So it was a great idea. I have 2 on order, they just haven't arrived. So he really kind of stepped it up and said, let's start doing some nice mixed cables. And as an offshoot of that, I said, can you take his 2 coppers, because on that cable, and I'll have a link to it, it is a mix. You have a choice of dark copper or bright copper, and you essentially see these 2 coppers right here. So I said, I already bought your silver, but can you combine the 2 thick coppers into a single 8-core cable? So if we look at, the edge of it, if you look at it closely, it's a very bright copper and a dark brown copper all braided together into a sort of ropey, very thick 8-core cable with these nice chrome terminations and another nice little split. This one doesn't have an actual chin slider because these were a bit thick for the ones that I wanted, so sort of went without it, but I'll survive. And 2-pin as well, and ear guides. So extremely nice looking cable. For those who are fans of 2-tones, it is a very beautiful 2-tone dark and bright copper. So that is one option. So unfortunately, this is a pure custom. There's no listing for it, so I can't give you a link to it. You'll have to ask him for it. You can send him the video link. You can send him a picture. He'll sort of know what you're talking about when he gets a look at it. So it was sort of a one-off just for me at the moment. So when we look at what I think about with cables is, if I tell you it's thick and braided, what does that really mean? So when we look at it against, let's say, this is the Faaeal hibiscus cable. So this gives you sort of an idea of what what we're talking about as far as the hibiscus cable is 4 cores, and each strand is just a little, probably a touch smaller, but thickness wise, it kind of fills out the same space, but in a more ropey form factor, if that makes any sense at all. But you can get an idea of the 4 cores versus the full 8 cores all braided together. It's quite nice. If we look at it against, this is the 24 core cable from KBEAR. You can get a sense of, and the 24 core is essentially about the same thickness as a 16 core. It's in that same ballpark. So you can kind of see it's quite a bit thicker than your typical 16 core from nice HCK. Each core of wire is significantly thicker. So it's not quite the same ropey texture that you get with 16 core, but pretty close. It's closer than these guys. So these 4 cores tend to be a little stiffer, and I'm not sure if it's just the 2 that are picked here that's a little softer, a little more flexible, but these tend to be a little stiffer to deal with. But when you braid them together into 8 cores, it tends to be a little nicer. And if you're a fan of, this is the KBEAR Rhyme cable as well, when you look at up close, what's the difference in size between the two? And again, I like the Rhyme cable because of that color scheme, silver and dark copper. But yeah, it's quite a bit thicker than the Rhyme. So not for everyone. A bit of a fan of thick cables, so it works for me. But do consider it's not actually all that heavy, but definitely thick. So do consider that, having that wrapped around your ear or draped across your neck when you're listening to it. So that is it. I just wanted to walk through my XINHS custom. And for those of you interested, I'll post a link to the HeadFi message board and a link to a cable or two so you can find the story easily. So again, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.